Good morning. We have a very simple theme for November. Strangely, it's thank you. I'm very original. So the theme today, the topic for today is thank you for our becoming. Last week we talked about thank you for our journey, for everything that has happened up until now, and the good and the bad, because it's what brought us here. When we think about November 2016, it's a year from now, how many of you would like your life to be exactly as it is today? No way. High five for that one. When you think of November 2016, how many of you would like it to be different than it is today? Well, some of you didn't raise your hand for either. Most of you said you like it to be different. But when we say different, don't we also mean better? So how many would you like it to 2016 to be different and better? Okay, see, now there we go. Trees. Okay. That's funny. Okay. Well, you didn't know what you wanted, right? No, it's completely fine to... I tell people, my funny story is when I was sitting in a group of people who were retired. I was teaching a class mostly to people retired, and I asked them, as they introduced their name, why they were in their class. And one after another said, just for fun, I'm pretty good, we're good, we're happy. I'm like, what the heck are you doing here? I've never been in a group of people who are just happy the way they are. They want to change. So it is a wonderful time in our life when we get to, and it can happen at any moment, where we've done a lot of change and we're just enjoying it. So I don't want to put that down. There's a great joy in being. And at the same time, the reason why I think I was pretty confident that people would want things to change. Do y'all know why? I'll tell you why. Because the absolute beingness of us is perfect love, harmony, peace, joy, wholeness. That's our absolute self. And so there's always this part of our relative self that says we're not there. There's always that relative self that's saying, I can feel it. I can feel that, but I'm not fully realizing it in every area of my life. And so there's always this little bit of unhappiness or push. That's the evolutionary impulse in time and space. So in the absolute, which transcends time and space, it is always already perfect, and we are made in the image and likeness of God. So at the center of our being, there's an essence in us that is always whole, perfect, and complete. But then in time and space, we haven't yet lived it out. And so that's what this whole evolutionary from the Big Bang to where we are today has been. Without our help, it has been evolving itself forward. And it's not just directionless. It's not just evolving towards some purposeless end. It's, I think, evolving itself to that always already perfection, and how extraordinary that it manifested these beings that are made in its image and likeness, that can have free will, that can have choice, that can co-create and feel. It's that paradox of being individualized expressions and yet one. And that's the ultimate, to know our absolute perfection as completely original and unique beings, and at the same time know we are totally one and there's no separation or any otherness. And that's something beyond what we can get to humanly, but we feel it, and so there's always this evolutionary impulse in our beingness that wants to strive to become more. And that becoming more can look both an external becoming more and an internal becoming more, and they both are incredibly valuable. Ella Wheeler Wilcox is a early New Thought pioneer, and she was she was fun. She just had a good life. She never called her husband. She only called him, she always introduced him as her lover. Now, this is my lover, Jack. I just think that's great. And this is back in the early 1900s, and I just thought she was so ahead of her time. And she loved life. She loved the fullness of life, and one of the things she loved was clothes. And so she just would say, I know when I'm just tired of these clothes, so I just clean out my closet. I don't know what's going to fill it. I don't know how it's going to get filled, but I know that I can't allow new clothes to come in if I keep holding on to these. So she just would get rid of them and create space, create the vacuum, knowing new life as clothes went into her. She enjoyed life. And that is a new thought principle that not only, and this is why we have to really look at what do we really believe, is not only is spirit evolving in general, it's evolving to something better. It's evolving, it's an eternal goodness that we're feeling a longing for. We don't want to change just for change's sake. We want to change for the better. We want to feel ourselves even closer to that divine ideal, that divine wholeness. And that's what's pulling us to, there's an expression, the pain pushes until the vision pulls. To start seeing where we want to go and allow ourselves to be pulled, because it's going to happen anyways. This impulse, if we don't move along with it, it's going to happen, and we can fight it, and then we get into a lot of pain and suffering. So what we want to do as conscious being is move in alignment with this already thing that's happening in us to evolve, to keep saying yes to it. But it's interesting because we also say how much we hate to change, how people don't like to change, they resist change. I got something about, organizations, people never want to change, it's hard, it's painful, it's difficult. And I thought, well, that's strange, because I think we naturally want to change. So why do we keep saying we don't want to change? And I think ultimately it's because we're afraid of what's next. We're afraid of what that change is going to lead to. So human beings also like comfort. So we tend to hold on to what's comfortable rather than change. So in a very simple example, my mother just on Thursday moved. She's been living in a home. So she separated from my dad in 1986 and created her home. And now she wasn't doing it for her husband or for her children, but for herself. So she invested her soul into this creation of her home and loved it and entertained and has had a very full life in this home, but it's very isolated where she lives, and she's now 82. So we've, for several years, been inviting her to move into a home. It's not a assisted living, but it's close to assisted living. So if she ever needed it, there would be help. And it's a big residence for elders, for sages, and so she was touring it. We knew it was the right place when they were taking her on a tour. And the lady said, "Man, every time we turned around the corner, we met someone else your mom knows." What does she know? Everybody in Cleveland. That's my mom. So we were all have been so clear. This is the place for her to go. But she's fought it. And the reason why she's fought it is because, not that she doesn't want the new, but it's because she has so many memories. Because that home that she put so much of her soul into carries so much of her with her. And that's what happens when we change. Ella Wilcox was not attached to her clothes, so she could let them go. But usually what change requires is letting go of something to create that vacuum for new life. And that can be very hard, because even though we know that it's time to let something go, we've created a soul attachment to it. And that soul attachment is hard to say goodbye to. So there's grief. And a lot of grief can start to come up. And that could be one of the reasons why we resist change, because we know we're going to have to go through that grief. I just happened to read something on Facebook this morning that just because we grieve something doesn't mean we want it back. When we're letting go of something, we can have memories that we love about it. My mom she just moved on Thursday, will always love her home and have great memories about it. But she's not supposed to be there anymore. And she knows that, so she waited until she was ready, and then so that's why she's doing it this year. It was because she said she was ready. We do it with relationships, we do it with jobs, we do it moving, living in different cities, different homes, cars, whatever that shift is, there's a sadness. And that's last week what we were talking about when we did that beautiful ceremony with Beth of being grateful for the people in our relationship, and I forgot to talk about animals, these things that have had deep impact on our soul, and giving thanks for their life in our journey. Because the more we do that, the more we give gratitude for what was, it helps us to let go. It helps us in that gratitude to move forward honoring who these people have been, animals have been, situations and conditions, jobs have been in our life, just to continue to give gratitude for it, and then to begin to create the space to what's new. The other part that's hard in change is not knowing, that vacuum. I have a girlfriend who, she never got married, but she gets in these relationships, and I've learned something over the years. So she'll be in a relationship, and then she'll know it's not going to work, and then she'll say, well, I don't want to break up with them because I don't want to hurt his feelings. And I thought that was very compassionate and loving of her. And so she'd stay a little bit, always longer than she was supposed to, because she didn't want to hurt his feelings. But I learned something. In another relationship she was in, when another man came along into her life before she had broken up, she wasn't that worried about the other guy's feelings. She just went right into the new relationship. And I thought, well, you weren't as worried about his grief. And that's because she knew she was going to be okay. So sometimes when we're really, and I noticed that was one situation, but I noticed it a lot. When we get really, really upset about someone else's grief, often it's because we're really protecting ourselves. If I'm really worried about them, then I don't have to be uncomfortable and leave. Because I don't know, I'm using a relationship, it happens in work. I don't know that when I leave, it's the unknown. I'm not totally certain I'm going to be in a new relationship that I like. I'm not totally sure I'm not going to be alone. I'm not sure it's going to be better than what was. So I'm going to worry about not hurting them. We do that. We use them as our excuse. But if someone else better comes along, I'm like, oh, I got to break up with you, I'm sorry. It's the terrible part of human nature, but I'm just being honest. And it's not that we don't care about the other person. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that sometimes we make it more about them because we're afraid of the unknown. All the stuff of why we don't like change. We hold on because we don't know in that vacuum what's coming next. And that's where we give gratitude. That's where thank you for our becoming, which is the topic for today, that as we start focusing on what we are becoming, we keep giving thanks for that becoming. So it's not just a vacuum of anything can happen. As we step into that emptiness, we start giving gratitude for that which we don't see yet, the eyes haven't seen yet, but the heart knows, the mind knows, and we do our inner work about accepting. We may not want to limit it. I generally don't want people to limit in terms of it has to look this way. I always have my favorite example, but we don't want it to look this way, but just to be open that I know whatever it is, I claim and accept it's going to be better. God is only good. God is only good, and this evolutionary impulse that knows that there's something in my life that has to change, that it's just hit the wall and they've got to move past it, whether it's in work, in relationship, in whatever, in where you live, whatever that looks like. I know that I have creative expression. I know I need more of it, but I don't know where it's going, and it's scary and it's terrifying. I just give thanks that God is on the field. God has gone before me and made the crooked places straight. God is guiding me to its higher and yet its greater yet to be. And so living in gratitude, as Reverend Michael was saying, as a way of life. And it's not to manipulate the universe, but to consciously recognize that which is real, which is God's infinite goodness. And that impulse that I have is my impulse to experience more of that goodness than I am now. And that's normal. That's natural. It is those moments where we feel peaceful and I don't really want anything more than what I have right now. That does happen, but it usually doesn't last. It's a plateau experience where we're enjoying this moment, but then that evolutionary impulse, it's got a lot of billions more years to go. So I think we're a long way to the end here. So it's getting comfortable with the fact that this is not going to change, this evolutionary impulse. And we are going to keep feeling it, and it is going to keep needling us to keep growing, to keep evolving. Relationships are there to help us continue to grow and evolve. Our work life is there to help us grow and evolve. That this world is here to continue for our own becoming. And so that's the last part I want to say, which is, I'm sure all of you have had this experience, where you've changed jobs or you've changed relationships, and it's really the same relationship, different person, same relationship, or different job, same job. it hasn't really changed. We've only changed the external. And that's what we're talking about with visioning. Visioning is about the becoming, that we change inwardly. And that's what can be really scary. However scary it is sometimes to change the external, changing who we are and how we show up in the world, because that's really what the becoming is. The infinite goodness that we feel, this absolute wholeness, this absolute harmony, this absolute peace that is the essence of who and what we are, is in us. It's not out there. It's in us now. So really the becoming, the evolution, it can reflect out there, but it has to be happening inside, or we're not going to really feel that shift that we made. So November 2016, we may have made some external shifts, but internally, we may not have shifted much. The shift we want to make is internally as well. It includes the external, but it's not limited to the external. So when we're doing the visioning process, often we'll ask questions like, what's God's highest vision for my relationship, for my health, for my finances, for my work life, whatever, my life, whatever we want a vision for, asking for where I am now, what's the next step, what's it look like in this next place. But the work, as Reverend Michael talks about over and over, is the prayer work of, there's two questions. What's my greatest area of growth right now, and what do I need to release? Because the vision already exists. I don't have to make the vision happen. I don't have to change the external world. I need to change myself. I need to change my own interior being so that I can be in the external world in a new way. And sometimes that will end up we'll think it's the relationship, or we'll think that it's a job, but as we're doing the internal work, I've heard so many stories about jobs, it makes me laugh. It's actually even happened where I live, but we make the internal shift, and then the people that need to leave at the job that were really bothering you leave, or you get a different assignment within your own job. In a relationship, suddenly your partner or your spouse is acting differently, and you don't know why. That when we start to make those changes inwardly, the area of growth area, what do I need to release? What is no longer serving me? And I'm doing my daily prayer work, having my prayer partner, I'm putting prayer requests out there, having my prayer partner pray for me, calling the prayer lines. There's a World Ministry of Prayer. There's a Unity prayer line. Get as much prayer as possible as I'm getting clear on what my inner growth is, getting everyone to pray and support me in that. Things start to shift that I have no control over, and so I might not leave my job. I might not leave the relationship. That relationship might change in a 360 degrees that I never imagined, or I might. You know, there's no right way. There's no route. But the key is that I've changed now. So two experiences. I was in a relationship with a man. I mean, no man existed before Jack, really, and just in some other life, I was in a. He's so cute over there. Okay, so I was in this relationship, and I knew it wasn't the direction I wanted to go in. And because he wasn't Jack, I knew that. Exactly. But I loved him, and he was a beautiful man, and I didn't want to hurt him. And so it was interesting, every time I tried to break up with him, I'd get 105 fever. I literally would get strep throat. My whole throat would turn white and pussy. Within a day, I would make up my mind, okay, I'm going to break up, and then physically get sick. I couldn't do it because my mind and my heart were not together on this one, but I was clear my mind was right. So finally, I stopped trying to, went for months doing this. It was miserable, but I just couldn't do it. And then finally, I just said, forget it. I'm not going to try to fix this relationship anymore. I'm just going to give my life more to God than I've ever given it, surrender my life, focus everything on my own interior world. So that was a step I was making in changing my interior life. And I remember like 3 months later, this woman comes up and she said, Harriet, you're so different. What's changed? And I had to stop because I hadn't been focusing on changing my life anymore. What I'd been focusing on was my relationship with the divine within. And that became so much of every day, that was the most important part of every day. And in doing that, these other things were shifting without me forcing it. And so we did break up, but it was so gentle. It was so loving, and we did move forward as friends. But it wasn't that drastic thing that I was planning. Another time, I was completely overwhelmed at work. Felt impossible. Everything, I was working full-time, school full-time, volunteering. It was just crazy. And I thought, there's just no way this can work. And someone said, practice the principles. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And they said, the principle's peace is always here, whether the conditions reflect that or not. So I just started praying to know that I am peace. I did that. I had my prayer partner. I called up the prayer ministries. There's a lot of different prayer ministries. I called up everybody. Pray for peace, that I know peace. And I just did that for 2 months. And then suddenly, oh, wow. They hired other people to take on the work that I was doing. Oh, look, they decided this was wrong in the school curriculum, and now we don't have to do that. I didn't change anything. I just kept knowing peace, and the world around me started shifting to make it all work that I had no control over. That's the power of becoming. Prayer work. Where is our growth? What do I need to release? And just give thanks that it's done. I give thanks that I am growing into this new place. I give thanks that it is good. That's the most important thing. I give thanks that it is good, because we will resist and we won't go the flow if we think that what's coming up is worse. November 2016 is going to rock. It's going to rock because we rock. We have people in this room who are going to completely shift by 2016. I'm going to completely shift. Are you guys going to completely shift? wait, what was that? Yeah. All right, Jeff might. I don't know. He's debating. Yes. You going to shift, Jack? Always. We're going to just do our inner work to continue to shift so the externals will be different. We don't know how it's going to look, but we just keep giving thanks. I've mentioned before, the way the New Thought Principles started was around physical healing, and they were looking at how did Jesus heal, and the one he really healed was when people said thank you before he ever did it. They just had faith that it was going to happen, and it happened. So they started with thanks before it visibly happened. That's the power of gratitude. That's the power of gratitude in our life. We give thanks in faith that it's happening. We have to have faith in the goodness of God. If you're more scientifically oriented, we have faith in the evolutionary impulse to make life better. That is a natural, effortless essence of making life better. It is doing it through us. Thank you, God, for our becoming. Let's